So I want to first just tell everybody I couldn't be more excited to be here with everybody today. I'm actually on the board of the New Look Foundation, so incredibly proud. So by background, I thought just to kind of explain a little bit of what I do, and then I'm going to bring up our panelists, but I want you to understand and pay attention because I want you to understand the reason that I am a part of New Look and have invested so much is because I don't really feel that there's any difference between the way that I grew up and the way that you're growing up today. So everything I've accomplished, I believe you can accomplish. So to put that in perspective, I run the largest business for the General Electric Company. It's $34 billion in revenues. We have 90,000 people in 140 countries around the globe. In order to keep that going, and a company like GE that's 125 years old, we're always trying to understand how we innovate, how we find the next set of technologies, the next set of disruptions that could help us as a company or might be harmful to us as a company. So I couldn't be more excited than to have the panel that we do today because I love spending time with true entrepreneurs because it's what I wanted to be actually when I started my career as well. So I'm going to bring them up and then we'll get into some of the dialogue. So first, Joel Burks, the founder of PartPick. William Kamkumba, the boy who harnessed wind is, right? And Chris Gray, the My Scholly app. So I always try to avoid reading bios. You know, everybody would rather tell your story your way. So I'd like to just kind of start one by one. If you could just kind of give, so how did you get here? And I know in just kind of, at least the background, could be a long story, but I think stories are important to frame what people have accomplished.
Sure. So, hi everyone. Again, my name is Joel Burks, and I founded a startup called PartPick about 4 years ago, and actually recently sold it to Amazon. So how I got here was I started my career in technology about 8 years ago, working at Google in Silicon Valley, and really got an idea. I transitioned from Google, started working for a parts distribution company, which was a lot more boring, honestly, than Google. But I got this idea that people would have a much easier time trying to locate parts if they could just take a picture of it. So if they could pull out their smartphone and take a picture of what they were looking for and instantly get an answer, that would be much easier than having to flip through a huge catalog or know a part number. And from that idea, I just started doing research, started to find people who could help me build that idea, and 4 years later, was able to sell it for millions of dollars to Amazon. So that's pretty much my story in a nutshell, but I'm sure we'll dig into it a little bit more.
It's a great start. It's great.
Hi, everyone. My name is William Kamkwamba. I'm from Malawi. I grew up in a very small village in Malawi. How I got here, when I was younger, I was very curious on understanding and learning how different things work. I remember when I was very, very young, between 3 and 6 years old, I thought that inside the radio, there are small, tiny people who speak. One day, when my parents went away, I sneaked in, I took their radio, I opened it, I wanted to say hi to the people that speaks or sing. I was very surprised to see something that looks like beans. I was like, are these people? Being a kid, there was only one way to tell. I was like, if I can pinch one of it a little hard, they will be screaming, say that leave us alone. But that didn't happen. So when I was growing up, I grew up in a farming area. We depend on growing our own food. So farming can be challenging. There's a number of things that makes farming a little difficult. One of it can be the weather. So in 2000 to 2001 growing season, we experienced some drought. And the results of that drought, the crops failed, and the entire country ran out of food really quickly. So there was hunger going on in the country at that time. That time was the time that I was supposed to study high school. In Malawi, high school, you have to pay for it, while primary school are for free. So because of the situation, my parents couldn't afford to pay for my school fees. I was forced to drop out of school. When I had to drop out of school, I started thinking, what can I do in order for me to continue with my studies? Like enough, the school that I just finished, they opened up a library. So I started going there to read books. And one of the books that I found, it was the book that they had pictures of the windmill on the cover. They say windmill could pump water. I was like, if I can be able to build a windmill to pump water, I can solve the problem that we are facing growing more food at 3 times a year. So that's how I started, and I decided to build a windmill that was generating electricity in my village. So that's how I get here.
Yep. My name is Christopher Gray. I'm actually originally from Birmingham, Alabama, so I used to come to Atlanta a lot. And I actually was going to college when the recession hit around 2008. I just graduated college a year and a half ago. And long story short, I won over $1 million in scholarships to pay for college up to my PhD after about 7 months of looking for all that money. And so as I got to college, I started to try to help a lot of other students do the same. And in order to scale those efforts, because it was started to become really hard to do that, I created this app called Scholarly, which helps. It's a mobile and web app that instantly helps students find money for college. So instead of students like you guys having to look for the money for college, it instantly uses an algorithm that instantly matches you with all those different dollars. So hundreds of millions of dollars at any given time. And it follows students from high school all the way up to graduate school, if they're returning to school, and even we've helped international students, be able to come to the U.S. with the app as well. So we have 1.6 million users, and we've helped students raise $70 million. We actually, a year and a half ago, we were actually on Shark Tank, and we got a deal with 2 sharks. We started the biggest fight in Shark Tank history, so we were able to get a lot of traction from that. The app was #1 in the App Store for about a month after that. And then we started to recently focus a lot on influencer marketing. So Jesse Williams, if you guys watch Grey's Anatomy, is on our team as well. And we've also done work with Oprah and her Super Soul brand, et cetera. So we've been able to really kind of grow the company in a really short period of time. It's about, at the end of this year, it'll be about 3 years old. So and we've helped a lot of people. So it's not a nonprofit, it's a social enterprise. So we really kind of tie our financial success to our social impact, and it's been pretty effective so far. Great.
So I think it's important for everybody to have an appreciation for kind of the destination that you've already gotten to and then work back on in terms of how you got there. How has investing in innovation, being involved in the technology space, how has that changed your respective lives?
It's changed my life completely. When I grew up, my parents were both entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs in a totally different space and time. My dad had convenience stores, and my mom ran an insurance agency, so both brick and mortar. And I grew up working in those businesses and seeing my parents work hard and seeing kind of the fruits of their labor, but it was totally different than what I was exposed to when I was in college. I interned at Google, and moving out to Silicon Valley for the summer, I saw all these businesses popping up and technology being the fuel for all of this innovation, and I got hooked. As soon as I got there, I was like, oh, I don't want to leave. So I ended up actually graduating from college early just so I could go back quicker to work for Google full time. And since then, I just got pretty much obsessed with technology in terms of what are the trends, what are people really, using as the way to grow business. And since then, it's, I'm in it.
Technology has changed my life quite a lot in many ways. When I started my technology and trying to learn how technology can be used to solve so many problems that people are facing in many communities around the world. In my community, we have so many challenges that we face, especially the problems of drought. And I was able to using technology in order to come up with the idea that farmers, they can be able to use that technology to pump water, starting doing irrigation, planting multiple crops a year. That is helping them out in terms of planting and also producing more crops that they can be able to feed their families. And if they like it, they can sell it in order to bring in money that they can be able to pay their kids to school, and also being able to support their families in general. So for me, taking the technology, how you can use existing technology, applying to something else to change in order to come up with the idea that will address the problem in the community. That is changing a life. While it's changing my life, but also seeing that it can be able to change other people's life, for me, it's very exciting.
So for me, the tech industry definitely kind of was an eye-opener because coming from Birmingham, then going to Philly, you realize that, to James' point when he mentioned that there's so much money in tech. You have all these companies investing millions of dollars into these companies that end up selling, for a lot of money. I mean, in the past, I'm 25. In the past year, we've turned down like $1 million acquisition offers, and my mom was like, "What the hell are you doing?" I mean, but it was just the idea of, that there's all this money out there, and it's been pretty life-changing to be able to access that, and also realizing that there are not a lot of African Americans in tech at all. So being able to be visible, when I first started raising money before Shark Tank, it took me a while for anyone to take me seriously. I had a white co-founder, and they would like completely not acknowledge me, even though the whole app was like my idea and stuff. Because of that whole, because that was so different than cultures. And actually, I actually was able to raise my first money after Shark Tank from an investor, Josh Kaufman, who's actually one of the on the Forbes media list, which is the number 3, which is the top investors in the world. And after a 15-minute conversation, he invested the first $100 grand into my company. So I was persistent. I went through that process. It took a while, but and after that, things kind of were able to kind of go up from there. So I think that it's really changed my perspective to understand that there is a lot of money out there, and we have to access that. And I think that with exposure and conferences like this, and also you guys having role models like us, it really helps you guys understand that it's it's easier to start a tech company than it is to start like a food company or a clothing company, et cetera. The cost of the barrier to entries are so low, but the returns are so high, right? I've friends sell their companies for 10, 20, 30. Actually, recently I had a company in first round sell that comes for $100 million. So, and these are young people, so you guys can really do that too. And so if you guys want to be entrepreneurs, get into tech and really take it and get a piece of that pie, because it's, we deserve that just as much as anyone else.
A lot of companies are started by people that see a problem that needs to be solved, something that really bothers them, that they want to be involved in fixing. I'm going to address this to Chris and William first. So in your respective entrepreneurial endeavors, it's been around something that is a social issue to some extent. So how do we get more kids into college? William, for you, how do we drive further electrification? I don't know if most people know, but there's still 1.2 billion people around the globe that have no access to electricity at all. And so, both of these are, to some extent, social issues. So how do you kind of talk to a group around not necessarily having to start with, I'm going to go do something consumer that's a billion-dollar company, but maybe starting into something social that can transform into something where you really can still make a profit?
Yeah, I think that when you're solving a social cause, it's one is very marketable, but also you create something that has a real problem, right? It's not like creating like Instagram where you just create another way for people to share photos or filter them, right? You are really creating something that solves the problem, that has a market that you can validate and that you can quantify, right? And that gives you a solid ground to raise money, to start a business plan, and and also hopefully create a revenue model around it. So I think that really think about a problem that you understand, that you're really passionate about, that you can create a story around, because that story becomes something that you can sell, that becomes something you can sell to investors, sell to the press, et cetera. But also, to Ross's point, it really allows you to be able to really think about something and really find a lot of data points around how to solve the problem and creating a plan around it. I think, but I will say that when you are starting the company, starting from scratch, make sure that you create a company that has a solid business model. Make sure that it's a problem that your financial success can really tie directly to your social impact. So those things never compromise each other. So if you take first round, one of our investors actually was one of the first investors in Uber, and Uber actually started off as a social enterprise. Think about it. It's a way for these people who have cars to suddenly make extra money. It's a way for people like us to have a private car service that we never got. That's a social enterprise. Now we can go have access, to these on-demand cars. And as you guys, I don't know if you guys follow the news, as the company got bigger, those values started to become compromised with kind of other values in the company. So really making sure that you have that social mindset in front and it's tied into your business model, so you don't have to think about that later, so those values aren't compromised. Because there's lots of problems, like we're dealing with the big market, college costs. Obviously, that's a big problem. There are things in health. There are things that you can overcome, like poverty, et cetera, that you can really help change a lot of people's lives, and really create a company that has a meaningful and lasting impact.
So one other thing that I can add up, like when you see like a challenge in like your community, you can see like that challenge, taking that challenge as a, like opportunity that when you come up with a solution to solve it, at the end of it, you're gonna create an opportunity for yourself, but also like the people that you are trying to address that challenge. The other good thing that if you are taking a challenge that you see in your community, you understand it better than anyone else and trying to figure out how can you be able to use some of the knowledge that you have or interacting with other people to come up with the solution that can address that issue. Most of the time, for me, when I see like challenges, I'm always like trying to figure out how can I bring up like some innovation in order to address this challenge. Because most of the innovation that we see like today, the spark that innovation, it was out of like trying to find the solution to solve a certain problem. But nowadays, you are also seeing that the same like technology, the technology can be built up on another existing technology in order like to come up with another ways of like trying to address a challenge. But also like apart from like creating like a lot of like revenue, also when you know that what you created, it has helped like to solve like a lot of problem like within the world, like in yourself, you feel like it's like it is a lot, like it feels like worth a lot because it live on like forever, like that you were like part of like that type of technology.
When you open magazines or you're looking on the news and people talk about startups, especially in the software technology space, people don't tend to look like you. And so what is it that you did to make yourself noticeable, and how would you coach the room on how do you get a seat at the table to even be able to present your ideas and get support?
So I think that's a huge problem. There aren't a lot of people that look like us who have been able to find success in the tech startup space, and I would say that's not just because that there are systems in place that kind of keep us out in a way, and so I definitely think that it's more difficult, and so just going into it knowing that it's a little bit more difficult to get in the right rooms and get in the right spaces, but it's not impossible. So for me, I was pretty resilient and really didn't take no for an answer in a lot of cases. I also tried to find ways to bring people to me. So for example, I did pitch competitions as a way to get on stages, get in front of people that I otherwise probably wouldn't have an opportunity to get in front of, and then follow up with those people so that I could get further meetings with them. So I was able to pitch at TechCrunch Disrupt, which is one of the biggest tech conferences. Had an opportunity to pitch in front of President Obama at the White House. I think, were you there also? Yeah. So those types of things where I'm kind of finding the right people and the right events and the right spaces and getting on stage and making people look at me pretty much. And then doing the follow-up work after that was my way of generating a buzz around what I was doing and generating press around what I was doing and using that to land customers and generate revenue. That pretty much was my strategy to get into the rooms that I otherwise wouldn't necessarily be invited into.
Yeah, I just really echo the same thing she said, and Jewel and I, we've actually, speaking of Noseville, we actually originally met each other. We were both doing the Forbes 30 under 30 photo shoot last year, and both of us were had our own spread in Forbes, so that was like kind of the epicenter of that. But actually, I agree with her. I mean, that's basically what I did. I didn't take no for an answer. Went to lots of pitch competitions, got access to lots of events. I always found a way to get access to a conference for free. Like there was a conference TED that's it's about 20 grand to go to a year, and like I met with the right person and I just kept talking to them. Like, oh, you should come with me. There were drinks involved, maybe. And then a few emails later, I was able to go to Vancouver for free, and then, I was in the same room with CEO of Uber, CEO of Disney, like Harrison, or just a ton of the different people like Eric Schmidt and these major people in tech were just kind of walking around, they were able to get into those spaces. But lots of pitch competitions, find them, apply for them. There's a good site called f6.com that was actually really, really useful that has created a lot of accelerators and pitch competitions. Just f6.com, and you can actually look for and apply for a bunch of different things. There's my friend Morgan who runs a site called Blavity. There's Afrotech, Black Enterprise has a tech conference now. and a bunch of other different Black outlets. So really start to think about that way where you can start to not only, because you want to get in front of people who don't like you, want to break that system, but you also want your own sense of community too. You want those kind of escapes where you can really be around your own people, have that support, and also bring the knowledge that you've gotten from from those other places, back into your community to help people like you guys be able to have those opportunities as well. But I think that you can't take no for man. She is so right. It's so systematic how things are taken out. I mean, how in terms of like the problems that they even look for. Like when we start a problem, I want to help you find rental college because obviously I came from a community of poverty where that's a problem. If I go to talk to a white man who's like a billionaire whose kids went to a school, he had a high school he paid $32,000 a year for them to go to, I actually had people tell me that do people actually have to pay for college? Like that's a thing, that's a really expensive thing because in their world, you'll be surprised, in their world they can't comprehend that. That's not their problem. So therefore, why would I put money behind a problem that I can't understand? But unfortunately, those are the people who have the money, the people who feel that investing in, something to innovate school. And I'm like, dude, like, you seen our school system? Like, Betsy DeVos and all these people. Like, we know, we aren't even there. You're trying to innovate private schools and things like that because that's what they see, and that's what they see as a problem. So it's really important that you guys make yourself visible, make our problems visible, and to solve those problems yourselves. So when you get that seat at the table, you can democratize that process and have a voice and influence some of those decisions.
Can I add one more thing to that? I just thought about another big piece of it is creating something that's undeniable. So thinking about, in my case, we created technology that people had never seen before. They'd never seen, these technology where you can just take a picture of an unmarked product and be able to get a response back in a second. That was something they'd never seen before. So it also has to do with making sure that your idea and the technology behind your idea, if you're using technology and the market size and all of these fundamentals are there as well. Because, you can't just network and there not be any substance behind it. So wanted to bring up that point of making sure that whatever it is you're trying to offer is valuable. It's
a great point. And I'd say, it's interesting to hear you all tell your stories. And I want to go, so the next question really is actually, start with you and then Chris to you. I've had the opportunity to buy a number of companies. I've had an opportunity to sell a number of companies. And so you've actually sold yours. You turned down offers. Just kind of but I mean, I love entrepreneurs because they're so passionate about the causes that they're supporting and what they've started. Give a perspective of how do you think about once you started a company, when would you sell it and what does it take?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly selling my company was the hardest decision I've ever had to make so far in my life. I'm 28, so my life isn't that long, but so far it's been the hardest decision. But for me, it was this, this notion of what's the end goal? And I had a very strong vision from the beginning. I want people to be able to tap on a button on their camera phone and take a picture of anything and get a response back. I knew that's what I wanted to do from the start. And when Amazon approached me, I saw they have all the products, all the infrastructure, and if I want to see my vision really come to life, that's a perfect vehicle to do that. So for me, it was a difficult decision, but at the same time, it was somewhat easy because when I started, I wrote a list of companies that if ever I did sell, these are companies that I'd be interested in selling to, and Amazon was at the top of the list. So when they approached me, it made sense.
Try not to smile.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a thing of, I had this idea of I want to build $1 billion business. Yeah. And so I was only 3.5 years into building PartPick when they came to me. And I wasn't where I wanted to be on that $1 billion business goal. So that was the hard part. It's like, I want to push this further, but I also see that they have all the things that I'm trying to get, they have it already right there. And so that was kind of the decision. But I plan to be a serial entrepreneur, so hopefully I can get to that $1 billion business one day. But yeah, it's certainly a hard decision to have to make, and I think it's really good to know where you want to go from the start, if you can, and think about kind of what your exit strategy is. And you may build a business that you want to run forever, and that's totally fine too. But it's important to have those thoughts in your head along the way, because if you're not thinking about that and then someone comes knocking with an offer, it makes it even harder to really make that decision.
Yeah, Agree. I would say to answer the first question of how you get there, you really want to make sure that you have a business that's fundamentally strong and that makes sense for an exit, right? I mean, when you start a company, your goal is to exit, which is either that's going public or you have to give, if you raise money, you have to give your investor return on your investment in some way, and that's either through an acquisition or she did or going public. So those events have to happen. So making a strong business model or a product and getting a strong user base, customer base that you can have some strong metrics behind is super important. I think that the decision to sell your company is definitely hard. It was at first I thought it wouldn't be hard because I was like, okay, this money, and I'm like, okay, it's just signing a piece of paper, just kind of just move forward the process. And then we were at this moment where we had, and we started that moment, we have a lot of momentum, and our revenue has been growing, we're profitable, and their profit is growing like 30 to 60% every month. And I'm like, we have so much room to do. Now we're doing this thing where we're gonna do a Common App for scholarships. People are gonna be applying for 200 scholarships on application. Then we're gonna do the Common App for college. There's just so much I want to do with the product that can make the company even more valuable. So I thought, well, it's almost like how you look at someone courting you with anything is that, hey, if this opportunity is sexy to them now, if I continue to do that part of my vision, it'll be even a better opportunity in the future, right? Because I wanted that vision, but also you have to think about leverage, right? You have to think about time. You have to look at, okay, because usually if a company that wants to buy you, they probably are kind of almost telling you that they're going to try to do what you're doing, and I don't want to compete with Amazon.
Yeah, that's another part.
But the company that I was trying to buy wasn't kind of that direct competition, so you have to think about that. It's kind of like the Instacart was the Whole Food thing, and Blue Apron, the debacle with all those different startups. Now Amazon is entering the space. It's like their stocks are dropping. So you have to think about that too. So don't be foolish. You really want to make sure there's a strategy behind and a real long thought. It took me 2 months before I got to the no, right? I was at the yes for the first month, and then I had to sit with my team, my board, and really look at the opportunity. So different strokes, different folks. So that was just my situation, but definitely build something that you think that you can sell. And also, very good point. A lot of you entrepreneurs do that. Think about the kind of company you can exit to from the start, so you can start to build a product that's attractive to that. Because I know some entrepreneurs who build companies just to sell them. Their goal isn't to make $1 billion company. Their goal is to, okay, let me build this product that can be an add-on to Slack, an add-on to Amazon, an add-on to what Walmart's doing, and I can sell it, right? They're literally entrepreneurs who literally come in with an exit plan and how much they can sell for this multiple. And then there's some entrepreneurs like the CEO of Uber, et cetera, who wants to make, something great, But I think that you always have to start a company with the biggest vision you can, but also be prepared to exit with a fundamental business model that works, that's attractive to a company that wants to acquire you.
That's great. So how many of you would like to be entrepreneurs of $1 million company of your own? So then the time is yours. Questions are yours. I'm going to hand it over for questions. Yes.
Sure. So I'll take the first question and the second one. So I'm not technical from a education perspective. I went to Howard University and majored in HU and majored in marketing. So I had a business background, but I really immersed myself in technology from a perspective of learning the lingo so that I could court developers and speak their language. So much to learning HTML and CSS, learning how to code, on the very basic level. So for me, I think it's really important to get fundamental knowledge so that you can vet technical talent. And then from there, there's a wonderful technology institute right here in Atlanta, Georgia Tech. I went to Georgia Tech and like hung out, went to events, got in the network there, started to meet people, wasn't afraid to talk to people about my idea. I think a lot of people are very guarded with your idea. You think someone's gonna steal it, but at the end of the day, everybody has ideas. It's about execution.
Yep.
So you have to talk to people because you will not be able to find anybody who can help you if you don't talk to people. So I definitely recommend getting immersed in at least the knowledge in terms of how do technical people speak? What are the languages that they know? What languages do you need to build whatever you're trying to build? And then, General Assembly has some great courses. There's a lot of free things online, Code Academy, W2 schools, all of that stuff, where you can get very basic knowledge. And then go hang out at Georgia Tech. Honestly, they have tons of events for entrepreneurs. There's a program called ATDC, which I was a part of, where you can join the community there for $50 a quarter and go to different events that they have, networking events, and you can meet people that way. And then the second question, sorry, who advised me? I had a lawyer throughout the whole process of my company. I think that's pretty important when you feel like you're gonna do something.
Right.
Find a lawyer, even if it's someone, an uncle, someone you can talk to for free at first, and then when you start to, get more legs to what you're doing, actually get an attorney. So that, he was very helpful. And then throughout the process, I had advisors helping me, so I would kind of share things with them. So advisors are pretty crucial.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Lele, and my question is for Mr. Williams specifically. So I know your invention helped your community in Malawi, and I wanted to know what brought you to the U.S. Like, what was your end goal, like coming here? What did you want to achieve after you actually invented your invention?
So I came here to study. I went to school in New Hampshire. So my goal is when I was in school, I still go back and forth to Malawi to work on different projects. Whenever I have a plan, I was always in school talking to other students that this is what I want to do. What can you advise me? So some of them, they were advising me. We were able to go back to Malawi to work on different projects. We did a project at the school. We created a system where the student, we record classes from other school. In that school, they don't have enough teachers, and then they use projectors, and I was able to build another windmill with the school, and they have power. They're going to be able to access that information at any time. So my idea is how can I be able to give back to my community or in Malawi in general with the knowledge that I'm accumulating through my studies and also interacting with people like you to try to come up with the ideas to solve some problems.
I think we got time for one more. Uno más. In the back. Okay, swag. All the way in the VIP. excuse me. I'm swim through here real quick. Oh.
The VIP.
Got that. I know, right? Are you coming to me? Come and see me for once.
Hello, my name is Tia. I'm from New Orleans. So this can be addressed to all of you. In the very, very beginning, when you first had these bright ideas, how did you start the financial talk with the people who had the funds to invest in you? Did you crunch numbers and say, I have these statistics of what's going to happen if you do this? Did you have a business plan, or was it as simple as you look, I have this idea, I think it's great. What do you think of it?
Yeah, my suggestion would be you want to create a pitch deck, which is the tech version of a business plan. The pitch deck has metrics and graphics about your market size, your business model, your go-to-market strategy, your competition, your product, et cetera, and that's something you can do in a PowerPoint. And with that, and there are lots of resources online that show you examples of pitch decks. Actually, I forgot to mention, I actually was an investor the first round. I worked on the dorm room fund, so we actually invest in student-run companies. So if any of you guys are in college and starting a company, look up dorm room fund, and you guys should apply or talk to me about it later on today. But the idea is that we saw lots of different pitch decks, and some people just used those pitch decks to actually recruit developers for their company because they're able to visualize what you want. And they're people who are graphic designers, et cetera, who can help you with that. But I would you can have a conversation verbally with someone, being able to send, most investors would ask you, hey, send me your deck, send me a kind of a write-up of what you're doing before you can to be able to have that conversation in person to make it more meaningful. But that's probably the first thing I would suggest, putting together that pitch deck before kind of if you can, before starting those conversations. It'll make them a lot more productive, and it'll give people more confidence that you understand your market, you've organized it, you see the problem and the financial potential for that problem, and it just makes people more confident to invest money. And Darwin Fund and First Round literally have invested in pitch decks. They were write $500,000 for a pitch deck with no product. So you can do that without that, but I would say giving something they can visualize or somehow they can see, or if you created something physical, bring samples or something like that where they can actually see it, and then that gets people's juices flowing.
I'm gonna add something to that really quick. The first financial conversation you have to have is with yourself as the entrepreneur, because we're talking about millions of dollars running through here, but that is years and years in potentially, and it takes a lot of sacrifice. I didn't even tell this part of the story, but I had a job for majority of the time that I was building my company because I had to pay my bills and we weren't making any money at first. So I think if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, you have to have a financial conversation with yourself, with the people that are around you, whether that's your parents or your partners or whatever, because it is going to be sacrifice. I was my first investor. I put $70,000 into my business over the course of the business through savings and loans and all these different things. And that's the part of the story that people usually don't talk about, but getting venture capital investment is extremely hard, especially for people of color. So I wouldn't count on it. I would think about how can you invest in your own business to get to a point where you can attract customers and make your customers your next investors. But you have to really think about the personal sacrifice that goes into starting a business, and that means cutting back on, whatever it is that you like or whatever your vice is. You can just cut it out because you're going to have to sacrifice if you want to be a successful investor.
Yeah, and to your point, I had to invest $5,000, run up 2 credit cards, take out a loan before I started. So she's right. You have to do that. I mean, it's important to make that sacrifice because I had to before I got on Shark Tank, I had to get 90,000 customers. So we had about close to $100,000 in revenue before I even was able to even think about an investment. So you definitely have to make that sacrifice. And I was in college too, so I would have a job, but I had 5 classes I was taking at the same time. So it's definitely tough and something you definitely have to make sacrifices to do.
So I would just close by saying that just to make it real for all of you, each one of them has a business that the company I run is looking to figure out how we work with them. So be it parts picking, I do $4 billion of parts transactions a year, so we will be talking. I travel the globe all the time trying to figure out how we bring power to 1.2 billion people, and when technology and how we be able to do that in remote locations is something that we really need to understand where the opportunities there are, and how we continue to bring a pipeline of talented people into the education system through college and into a company like G where we hire thousands of new people each and every year. Is something that's very important to me and near and dear to my heart. So hopefully you all enjoyed the session. Let's congratulate and thank our panelists. I'll hand it back to my man.
Yep. Man, y'all make some noise for him again, y'all. Russell Stokes, GE, OG Stacker Dollar in this thing, man.